Try this again. Chapter 6. Down to the last card. Simon and the other three proceeded through the door to the next trial. This time, however, there was no flash of bright light. The group proceeded through this door as they would normally in a house or a building. But what was in the room they entered was nothing like any of them expected. In the circular room were two human-sized pod-looking objects in the center, and on the right side was what looked like a console that allowed someone to monitor the activity from the two pods. One of the pods is already active. Look, there's someone inside it, Harold said as he pointed to the pod on the right, where some LED lights were flashing and others were solid. Simon saw that it was a familiar face inside the pod. It's today, Simon told them. Then a monitor on the wall turned on, and the image of a figure in a black robe with a hood over their head, such that their face was completely hidden.
I applaud your efforts in getting this far. You might be confused as to what type of trial this is. Allow me to explain, said a voice.
Said a voice that seemed to be coming from the wall monitor, the same that they had heard after the first trial.
The pods you see are full-dive virtual reality pods, configured to play one specific game, Wizard 101. It is the game where you are a wizard student and defeat enemies in a turn-based wizard duel with spell cards. These units are connected to the Wizard 101 server. So, when you dive in, you will be able to log into your account and choose your best wizard for this trial. Instead of being placed where you were the last time you played the game, you will be immediately transported to a location within the game where the trial will take place. In this instance, however, there are much higher stakes. If your character's health points reach zero, not only will the character you chose be deleted, but you will also die. As to how you will die, your brain will be turned off. Now, as there is only one other pod available, only one of you can join your friend in this trial. Choose your best player. To the one chosen, I wish the best of luck. Farewell.
Simon, it has to be you, said James. We do not have such technology where I am from. I've never played the game, said Dan. I've played it a little bit, but didn't you play this game a lot with Jade these past few years? I would think you and she would have a kind of synergy at this point, said Harold. All right, guess I'm going then. See you guys afterwards, Simon told them. Then he activated the pod, which put him to sleep momentarily. When Simon opened his eyes, he saw a Wizard 101 login screen before him. He tapped the username box, and a hologram keyboard appeared below the login screen. He entered his login credentials for the game and was brought to where he would select one of his 6 characters. Naturally, Simon chose his highest level wizard, a balance wizard named Chris Lionsword. In Wizard 101, there are seven main schools. Balance is one that allows players to use a little bit of all the other 6 main schools, as well as its own abilities. When Simon chose his wizard, the area around him changed to match the graphics of Wizard 101. And he also noticed that he was no longer himself. He had become his Wizard 101 character. When Simon entered the game, he was placed in front of a sigil, which is where players can team up to enter an instance together to fight enemies within. They consist of 4 circles, which represent the maximum number of players that can enter at one time. Another female wizard, named Morgan, was waiting by the sigil. Morgan was Jade's top character in her account.
I was wondering when you were going to log in.
Said Morgan. Oh, you weren't waiting too long, were you? Chris asked her.
Only a few minutes. Any idea what's inside?
Not a clue. I suppose you were explaining the stakes we're facing? Besides failing to stop the calamity.
Yeah. If we die in here, a character is deleted and our brain is turned off. No pressure, right?
Morgan replied.
Well, let's get to it.
The two of them joined the sigil, and after 10 seconds, entered the instance. In the room beyond the sigil was a familiar non-player character, or NPC. It was Merle Ambrose, the headmaster of Ravenwood, which is the school from which players learn their spells they use in the game. Welcome to your final test. You have done well to make it this far. However, I cannot allow you to proceed beyond this point, he told them. As he did so, he transformed into a shadow version of himself. He retained all the physical features he had before the transformation, but now, from head to toe, his body, including his clothes, was dark gray, almost black, and a dark aura surrounded him that was unlike the aura that surrounded Harold when he was possessed. After that, he pulled Simon and Janae into a duel circle, beginning the duel. Jay, look at his health. He has 1 million health points, Chris told Morgan. We can set up for my Scion of Balance with a double damage effect, but I'm going to need at least 6 blades. It does not matter which ones, since I have enough balance blades in hand to boost the damage,
I have some in hand, and I have some traps I can put on.
Morgan replied. In Wizard 101 duels, at the start of each turn, players will have 7 cards in their hand. Players can discard cards from their hand, but on the next turn, they will draw from their deck until they have 7. Blades are cards that put damage buffs on allies. Traps are damage buffs that are placed on opponents. Participants play spells based on the number of pips the participant has on the given turn, and the number of the same is required to use the spell. If a spell requires 3 pips, the player must have that many pips to play it. Each turn, every participant gains either a regular pip or a power pip, which is equal to 2 regular pips for that participant's main wizard school. Shadow Ambrose went first, since the duel started with the pointer pointed at him. Sometimes duels start with the pointer pointing at the players. Shadow Ambrose started the duel with an unfamiliar field spell. Unfortunately, Chris and Morgan would not be able to find out what effect it provides until the next turn. Morgan placed a set of elemental blades on Chris, which gives him a plus 35% fire blade, ice blade, and storm blade. Chris used a savage claw spell, which dealt 2180 damage to Ambrose, and put a plus 25% balance blade on himself. That was the end of turn 1. That's weird. Nothing about the effect of this field spell is showing for me, Chris said.
I'm not seeing anything for it either.
Morgan replied. By the end of several turns, Chris had far beyond the 6 blades he needed, and there were at least 4 traps on him. Also, Chris had 7 power pips, the maximum number of pips a player can have. I'm going to go ahead and hit now, Chris told Morgan. When Chris's turn came around, he played his Scion of Balance, which was granted the double damage effect. Shadow Ambrose! This is the end of the duel! Chris cried. The spell hit Ambrose, and he was surrounded by smoke. Are you sure about that? Ambrose responded as the smoke cleared. His life had only been reduced by about half. Under normal circumstances, with a normal enemy, my life would be at 0 after that attack. The field spell I played halves any damage I take, Ambrose explained. I must applaud you and your friend for that mighty attack. Naturally, I will have to respond in equal measure. I have just the card in my hand. Shadow Devastation. This card sends all remaining cards in your decks to the discard pile and reduces your health to 1. All you'll have left now is the cards in your hand. Use them wisely.
I still have a few cards in hand.
Morgan told Chris.
But none of them are hits.
So is this it then? Do we just sit here until we're defeated? Chris asked. There's got to be something we can do,
Maybe a minion could help.
Morgan replied, and for her turn this round, she played a death minion spell. Fortunately, Ambrose did not play anything this turn. On the next turn, Ambrose played another plus 40% Shadow Blade. Morgan and Chris skipped their turns, and the minion used a Death Fairy, which only dealt 50 damage to Ambrose. As Simon began to feel that this would be his last trial, he heard a faint voice. Young wizard. Young wizard, came a familiar, raspy voice to Chris from nowhere. All hope is not lost. Ambrose? Chris responded. Yes, it is I, the true Ambrose. The enemy you now face is naught but an impostor. I tell you now, there is one spell in the spiral that only appears to a worthy wizard under very unique circumstances. First, the wizard must be at least level 50, which you have far exceeded by now. Second, you must have no cards left in your hand or deck. Lastly, you must have 10 pips, which you currently do. True Ambrose told Chris. But I only have 9. Also, Shadow Ambrose has this field spell that halves any damage I deal him. Worry not about that. This spell of which I speak, as the circumstances are so unique, it would be a pity that its abilities might be diminished by an opponent. So it was also granted immunity from such effects. Now, you must return to the duel before you miss your turn. Also, you do indeed have 10 pips. Your single normal pip has converted into a power pip. Via pip conversion, an ability wizards gain at level 110. Ambrose explained. When Chris returned to the duel, he saw that he did in fact have 10 pips, and a card that he had never seen in his deck before. He remembered drawing a picture of the card in his free time once, but never imagined it could become a real card. This card was called Ultimate Nova. Shadow Ambrose, this is the final card. I play Ultimate Nova. It divides your remaining health by 10, dealing you that much damage for each school except for Shadow, but also includes the 3 Celestia schools, Sun, Moon, and Star. Chris told Shadow Ambrose. It matters not, since all damage to me is halved. He responded. Not this time. Ultimate Nova has immunity to all negative effects on the field. Shadow Ambrose! Feel the wrath of the spiral! Chris cried. Ambrose was hit with damage 10 times, one for every wizard school except Shadow, which brought his life down to 0. Ultimate Nova also heals all allies to half health, Chris said as Shadow Ambrose faded into nothingness, and the same happened to Ultimate Nova. I guess you only get to use it once in a lifetime. After that, Simon and Jade logged out of Wizard 101 and awoke in their pods. The pods then opened, and they both climbed out of them. Well done, you two, James told them. We were able to watch the duel from the monitors on the console. That Ultimate Nova was a pretty cool spell. Well, it's gone now, Simon told them. Seems it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Then, a rectangular portion of the wall in front of them materialized and moved away from them and then to the left to reveal the door to the 4th trial. The 5 of them proceeded onwards through the door.